How today?
Good.
So, let's see, who is new here today with us? Anyone who is here for the first time on my left? Yes. Tell us your name and how you got to know about this group cultivation.
I got to know from the SGC group chat.
Good, welcome. And how do you get into the group chat?
Yes, I think during the 5-part class you mentioned that there's this meditation checking thing.
Okay.
So I asked the chat.
I see. Good. Welcome, welcome. Let's see on my right. Who is new here for the first time? Are you here for the first time? Wait, let me see. All here before, Okay, so let me see. Yeah, so welcome to SGC. We have our puja, meditation, and then a bit of Dhamma sharing. Okay, so used to be at 2 p.m., then we shifted to 1. We're going to stick to 1 for the time being. Recently, I learned that another center has also started some kind of meditation check-in, Guan Chanling. Yeah. So this is actually, I quite like the way they do it. So instead of writing down how much time you meditate, you just post a heart shape. Yeah. So I want to suggest that we change that. When I saw that, I thought there are 2 advantages to that. One, those who, there are some who may feel maybe a bit shy, yeah. Like one person check in, like you check in maybe 15 minutes, then another person check in 1 hour. Yeah, or you're about to check in 5 minutes, then another person check in 45 minutes. Then okay lah, better don't check in. Yeah, so I think the way they do it encourages people to just check in. And there are those who have checked in with me with regards to puja as well. Yeah, so I think it can be positive. Yeah, you can do any kind of practices, whether it's meditation or puja or reading of sutra, and you can just post let me see, is heart shape good? What do you think? Pose a heart shape? Yeah? Heart shape good, huh? Yeah. So that's one side, one advantage of that. The other advantage is actually it will also prevent the arising of pride. In the various teachings, it highlights that there are five upper factors, which the Arahant overcome. The most fundamental will be ignorance, but next to it is conceit or pride. In the Yogacara Bhumisastra, it highlights that the pride of a cultivator is even higher than that of a non-cultivator, higher than that of a worldly person. And why? Because for a person who has cultivated to some degree, then he look around, I am able to do this and that. I don't see anyone around me who can do it. So it can give rise to pride also. It can give rise to pride. So moving forward, we can change this and give it a try. They are not doing for long term, they are doing for the summer retreat, which is for 3 months from around this time all the way to the Ulaanbaatar festival. So So 3 months. Yeah. So yeah, we can try that also. Yeah, for 3 months, and then we can see what happens after that. Okay. So for today, we have a topic. What is today's date? So today's topic is the man named Bad. Yeah. Have you heard of this sutta before? Yeah. It is from the Jataka. Yeah. Sometimes translated as Jataka tales. It is a collection of texts about the Buddha's past life. Yeah, the Buddha's past life. Have you heard of the Buddha's past life? Yeah. Some of you may have, some of you not. So in the Chinese canon, it's called Ben Shen Jing. In the Pali canon, so are you familiar with the Pali canon? The Pali canon? No? Have you heard of the Pali canon? Yeah, Pali Zhang. Not the Paris canon, not the Pali, not a Pali. It's Pali canon. Yeah. So the word Pali there are two words that stands out in Buddhism: Pali and Sanskrit. Yeah. So these two are languages that were used by the early monks to record down, as a means to store the suttas. Yeah. Unlike Pali, Sanskrit has both a written form and also the spoken form. Whereas for Pali, it's actually a spoken dialect. Yeah, it's actually a dialect. So the word Pali is interesting because the word Pali, if you look through most of the text that explains what Pali is, the word Pali is actually kind of like a misunderstanding. Yeah. So originally, Pali refers to the text itself. Yeah, the collection of teachings. But as it was used very frequently to refer to it, then at some point it became known as the language. Yeah. So, but today we just loosely use Pali to refer to the language, the sense, the dialect. Yeah. Pali has a close cousin called Prakrit. Yeah, Prakrit Sanskrit. I see that similarity. And this itself is from this place called Magadha. Yeah, in I think western part of India. Yeah, so it is believed that the Buddha spoke a form of Prakrit. Yeah. But a show of hands, how many of you speak more than 2 languages? Actually, all Singaporeans should speak more than 2 languages, except for the younger ones. Yeah, all of us should speak English and Mandarin. Yeah, we don't speak Chinese actually. Yeah, any of you speak Chinese? Any of you speak Chinese? After what I said, nobody there to raise a hand. But usually Singaporeans always say that we speak English and Chinese. Chinese is actually the written script. Yeah, Mandarin is what we call Huayu. Yeah, nobody speaks Chinese actually. Chinese is the written form. Okay. So beyond English and Mandarin that we speak, yeah, what else do we speak? Yeah, as a Chinese, we speak our own dialect such as Hokkien. What else? Teochew, Cantonese. What else? K and Hakka is it the same? No. K-way. Then Hakka is K, right? Yeah. Then Hainan. And what else? I think that's about it. Under Hokkien, maybe there's that variant of Hokkien and so on and so forth. So you think about it, we are not language experts really, but already most of us who are above 30 probably speak at least 3 to 4 languages. But we don't really think much about it. But for many people in other countries, which is more homogeneous, they're like, wow, how many languages do you speak? That's besides some of the other foreign languages that some of us may learn. So it's very likely that the Buddha, being a prince and schooled in many of the worldly knowledges, would have spoken more than one language as well. Otherwise, it would be quite difficult to imagine that the Buddha traveled around India and he spoke to people directly. There was no mention about any translators. So chances are high, he didn't speak just Prakrit, he spoke probably many languages, and possibly including Sanskrit. So, what is it about Pali and Sanskrit? Generally speaking, Buddhism today can be categorized or grouped under 2 broad umbrellas, namely the Theravada school and the Mahayana umbrella. So for some of you who have attended some of the diploma or BA, MA course, or you have attended some a bit more formal Buddhism classes, you would have learned something about the 18 schools. The 18 schools. The 18 schools came about approximately about 150 plus years after the Buddha passed away. Some would say that the nascent form started then, and then about 200 to 300 years after the Buddha became more formalized. But you will, wait, maybe I can have a show of hands first. How many of you have heard of 18 schools? Some of you have heard of it, So under the 18 schools, there are 2 broad umbrellas, the Theravada and the Mahasangika. Many people mistaken the Mahasangika to be Mahayana or Mahayana to be Mahasangika, but actually there are 2 different groups. In the Mahayana teachings, the reference to Hinayana actually is referring to the whole of the 18 schools. It's not just half the schools. So why is Shifu mentioning all this? Because within the 18 schools, what we call Theravada is 9 of the schools. Then there were Mahasangika, which is what is known as the Great Assembly. Theravada literally means the elders, the way of the elders, or the school of the elders. Some of this came about prior to the Second Council, and in fact the Second Council started out because there were some differences there. But the key thing I want to highlight from here is that with the Theravadan school, what we call Theravada today is actually one of the 9 schools within Theravada back in the 18 schools. The remaining 8 of the Theravadan school ceased to exist in India. The branch that came out was the one that got transmitted into Sri Lanka, and from Sri Lanka over to Myanmar, over to what we call Bangladesh today, then Myanmar, the Myanmar Empire, and then on to the Cambodia Empire. Thai came a bit later historically, but the Thai kingdom rose and then expanded, and the influence between Sri Lanka, Myanmar, and Thailand is one that is very interesting, because at some point in time, although the transmission came from Sri Lanka, Sri Lanka Buddhism waned at some point, declined to the point where the king actually requests for monks, groups of monks from Thailand and from Myanmar to come back to revive the order. That's why in Sri Lanka, you typically hear of 3 different nikayas. 3 different nikayas. So the term nikaya actually means groups, or aggregation. So this is some of the development. But within Theravada itself, the southern tradition, they all subscribe to what we call the Pali Canon. Pali Canon. So what's interesting about the Pali Canon is that while they all subscribe to Pali Canon, they all wrote it down using different script. In Sri Lanka, they wrote it down either in Sanskrit or Sinhalese. Most predominantly in Sinhalese. So typically those who are Pali scholars, they would also learn some form of, at least some bit of Sanskrit, because of that similarity, and also because some of the earlier texts were written down in Sanskrit, although it's called the Pali Canon. So as it transmitted to different countries, such as Myanmar, then they used the Myanmar script. The interesting thing about Myanmar, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, is that there's a huge conflux of culture, back in the maybe about 14th or 16th century, where there was this very huge Javanese empire, and it brought with it trade, language, and religion. Different things were brought over. So today, if we consider how, in many of the classes I conduct, I would highlight about how Malay language, whether it's Bahasa Melayu or Bahasa Indonesia, you'll find similarities with Sanskrit. You'll find that similarity, and it's because of that early spread of trade, language, and religion, that culture. So when we look at Pali Canon, in Myanmar, it's actually written in Myanmar script with some parallel, to some extent even the writing there's some parallel. And then there's the Thai script. So within the Pali Canon, we have what we call the Tipitaka. Literally the 3 baskets. In the Mahayana canon, depending on which of the lineage within Mahayana, Mahayana means the gradient vehicle or the great vehicle. And within Mahayana, you have quite a few different lineages that spread from India itself. We have China, which is most prominent in Singapore, or rather within Singapore is one of the most prominent form of Mahayana Buddhism. But in the West and perhaps increasingly all over the world, we have the Tibetan tradition. So in the Tibetan tradition, they introduced the idea of another form of the 3 vehicles. They call it the Theravada school, the Mahayana school, and the Vajrayana school. But this is actually only recognized within the Tibetan tradition. If you go by the sutra, then it is Stravaka, Stravakayana, then you have the Pachakyayana and the Bodhisattva Yana. So you have the path of the hearers, path of the solitude Buddha, and then you have path of the Bodhisattva. And all these 3 flow towards the Buddha path, the Buddha way. So this arrangement of the 3 vehicles is different from what is advocated in the Tibetan school. The one that I just mentioned is found inside the sutra. With respect to that, we cannot ignore that within Mahayana Buddhism, there are various lineages. Yeah? From the Chinese tradition, we go down south, you see the Vietnamese lineage under Ling Jizong. Yeah? In Japan, it's called Reason. Yeah? Then from Japan, from China, it went northwards towards Korea. Yeah? And is what is the forerunner of what is known as Korean Buddhism, which includes the Zen Buddhism there. And from Korea, that version then spread to Japan and became known as Zen Buddhism. Yeah? So you see that whole conflux and spread. So today, if you look at these few traditions and you look at the texts, they all can be traced back to the Chinese version, yeah, the Chinese Tripitaka, yeah, or the Chinese canon. Because in Japan, if you look at the source text, it's actually in Chinese characters. Granted, some of the Chinese characters that were written is of a slightly different form, even the so-called traditional script. Because traditional script before today, it has evolved a little bit as well. Yeah? Then within this Tripitaka is also the three baskets. And so in the Pali Canon, you will see Vinaya, Sutta, and Abhidhamma. And in the Chinese Tripitaka, we start off with the Sutta first, then Vinaya, or Sutra rather, because it's from Sanskrit source, and Abhidhamma. The other thing to note is that while a huge part of the Chinese Tripitaka is from Sanskrit sources, some of it is actually from Pali. Yeah? There are records that indicate that the Chinese emperor in the past, they actually invited the monks from Cambodia to go to China to assist in translation. Yeah, because some of the texts that arrived in China was actually in Pali. So the idea that, Chinese Tripitaka is purely this is actually not completely true. A huge part of it is Sanskrit, but part of it is Pali. And then the idea that, Pali Canon is purely the Theravada is one of the schools within the 9th school. Yeah. Then if you go further back, about 3 months after the Buddha has passed away, the Buddha actually, at the Buddha's time, there was no MP3 recording, there was no text, as in written down text. So 3 months after the Buddha's passing, Venerable Mahakashapa, one of the chief disciples for asceticism, he convened the first council. Yeah? The reasonings for him to convene that was that he overheard a conversation while on the way to Kusinaga. And there were some monks who were saying, from what I remember of the text, this is not my words, okay? These are the words of those he overheard. And they actually said something like the old man is gone. Okay, now we don't have to bother about all these details anymore. Yeah, so he was concerned because prior to the Buddha's passing, I think one of the key teachers of the Jains passed away, and there were a lot of upheaval within the other schools, yeah, at the Buddha's time. So when the Venerable Mahakashapa saw that, he took upon himself that the first task, the first thing to do after the Buddha passed away is to ensure the integrity of the teachings. Yeah, so he convened the 500 Arhants, and there's a background story about how Venerable Ananda was refused entry. because he has not attained arahanthood. So he put in extra effort. Now this is actually very interesting because prior to this, you see in many, many suttas, the Buddha exhorting Venerable Ananda, telling him, do not waste your time, go and meditate. Yeah. Venerable Ananda served as his attendant. Everywhere he go, he will be there. Yeah? And in cases where he's not there, Venerable Ananda actually requested for the teachings to be repeated to him, by the Buddha. But despite that, the Buddha still insists that no, you go and meditate, you go and practice. Do not while your time away. Yeah? Do not regret in the future. You could think of that statement in today's context as stop bothering about all the so-called community duties you are busy with, You, as much as you can listen to so much teaching, if you don't go and meditate, you're not going to attain enlightenment. Yeah, so, although he was the repository, living, walking repository of the teachings, 25 years of 45 years teaching. Yeah. And it is said that he requested for the earlier teachings to be repeated to him. And yet, right up to the end, before the Buddha passed away, he still did not attain arahanthood. Meanwhile, many individuals have met the Buddha, just heard one verse or just one short teaching and attained arahanthood. Yeah. So you can imagine the kanchong, because he's the living repository, and yet he is not allowed into the council. Yeah. So Venerable Mahakashapa, for some, it may seem like, wow, why are you so hard on him, Like, he has served the Buddha so well, the community so well. Why do you refuse to let him come in? Well, because he has not met a monk. Yeah. According to my teacher, in the Buddha's time, those who serve as community official are those who are arahant. Then he also said, but if today we enforce that, then there's no more community official. Hard to find one. Yeah, hard to find one. Yeah. So in any case, Venerable Ananda put in zealous effort, but no matter how hard he tried, he just couldn't have the breakthrough. Until finally he's so tired, so worn out physically, and he just lay down. And it is said that the moment he lay down, and he attained arahanthood. Now, do not mistaken that as, okay, go tonight, go back, lay down, then apply for 3-month leave, whole day keep lying down. Yeah. It is not simply the act of lying down. To mistaken that would be to think that Archimedes, to think that one of the scientist, philosopher, Archimedes, he is said to have came up with the idea of buoyancy, when he took a bath. As he went in and the water came out, and eureka, and then he ran out naked, To think that Venerable Ananda got enlightened just because he went down would be to think that all scientists should just keep taking bath. It doesn't work that way. Yeah. It is because he already has all the teachings in him. So anytime he wanted to do it, he could possibly have done it, but he was just too preoccupied in a way, with all the community duties. Yeah. He didn't just serve the Buddha actually. You look through the whole Pali Canon, you see that everybody who needed something go to him. Yeah. He had a very gentle demeanor. Yeah, not like Shifu. Yeah. He's described as a well-liked person, by the monks, the nuns, the laymen, the laywomen. Yeah. Not just his demeanor, but he was pleasant to look at as well. So many positive things said about him. Yeah. So ultimately he managed to do it, despite all that. Yeah, because he in a way spent all his time helping other people, do this, do that, Yeah. But ultimately it took his effort. And he was allowed in. And in the first council, Venerable Upali recited the Vinaya, and then Venerable Ananda recited the Sutta Pitaka. Yeah. The recitation didn't happen the way we see the text today. Yeah, it was just a straight run through. And then it was verified by the 500 Arahants, or 499 if you will. Yeah. At a later stage, yeah, this got adapted. Adapted in what way? They spread out the workload. They didn't have one person, oh, Venerable Ananda memorized already, you just one person memorized. This is what today we call single point of failure. Yeah. Venerable Ananda died, then the whole, today we have no sutta. But instead, they got 500 persons to verify it, and after that, spread the workload to many others to make sure that it gets passed down. Yeah. You don't have one person memorize that one particular text. You have multiple people memorizing the same text so that if one person died, the next person can still pass on. But despite all that effort, at some point, the what they call redactors, those who are responsible for retaining the teachings, what happened? Stop checking your phone. They found that some groups of the communities had died out because of famine, because of various conditions. And as a result, some texts went missing. Imagine, instead of books, they had companies of, not the commercial company, but companies as in groups of individuals in charge of different texts. And because we are all different, some of them are more inclined towards reciting long texts. Okay, Adriana, hello, what's her name? Adriana, right? What's your name? Huh? Gina. Can you try the method that I mentioned many times? Yeah. Hold your baby and then with the, yes. Okay, thank you. It works, so just always use something that works. So, a few things about about that. So we have different groups memorizing different texts, yeah, and depending on their ability, some would recite all the long texts. Some would recite those that is not so long but not so short. Others are good at memorizing according to topics, and yet there are those who are good with numbers. So as a result, if you look at the first four Nikayas, you have the long discourses, middle length discourses, you have the connected discourses, and the numerical discourses. So in the Vinaya, you have the precepts, and then you have the Sutta Pitaka, which you have the long discourses, you have the middle, you have the connected discourses, and you have the numerical discourses. This is known as the Digha Nikaya, the Majjhima Nikaya. This is the Samyutta Nikaya and the Anguttara Nikaya. The Abhidhamma Nikaya, or Abhidhamma itself came later. According to the Abhidhamma, it is supposed to have been recited or passed down through Venerable Sariputra. Yeah. But in the first council, it was not mentioned. Yeah. In the first council, it was actually not mentioned. So in the first council, there were only 2 Pitaka. Yeah. But today we recognize these 2 plus the Abhidhamma as the 3 collections. Yeah. So in the Pali Canon, you have a 5th one, yeah, which is called the Khuddaka Nikaya. Literally the smaller text. And within this, you have many other suttas, such as the Theragata, the Therigata, and this would be the verses of the elders, the verses of the elder monks, and this is the nuns, elder monks and nuns. And among all this, you have also the Dhammapada, and we have what we call the Jataka. Yeah, so I spent a bit of time to give you that background. If you can remember this, then next time I don't have to go through this. Many times during the Heart Sutra, I will actually go through this in brief. Yeah. So some of you who have gone through the Heart Sutra class would find that this is a bit of a refresher. Now, within Jataka, there are a few volumes, and it goes through different accounts of the Buddha in his past life. In his past life. The one we are going through today is called the Man Named Bad. There are a lot of different translations of the Jataka. And according to some scholars, when they look at the story, the background and the outline, they find a similarity to another set of stories, which is a bit more famous. You may have heard of the Aesop's Fables. Have you heard of the Aesop's Fables? Yeah? The famous story of the turtle and the hare. All that came from the Aesop Fables. But why is there a parallel, and so what if there's a parallel? After all, a lot of stories get passed around and everybody copy each other. Copying didn't happen after MP3. Way before that, people copy each other. Good things get copied. According to some scholars, Aesop's Fables came about when one of the slave, there was a slave. I'm not sure whether is his name Aesop's, but supposedly in I think the Middle East, one of the Middle East country, there was this, or maybe Persian, one of these slave who had a lot of stories to tell. And so the master sort of like, they had some agreement that if he can tell him like more stories, he would win his freedom. So Aesop, instead of like living his life like a normal slave, every day he would tell a story. And the stories were so interesting and so delightful with wisdom and all. At the end of the day, after he finished all his stories, he really won his freedom. Now, where did he get his story? Accordingly, he is said to have heard it from the Jataka. So if that is true, and in all likelihood that's probably true, because if you look at the timing, the Jataka seems to predate the Aesop's Fable. So if that is true, if, and it's a big if, then the Buddha's past life, even in a different context, managed to free a slave. Although not directly meant for that. So, in this context, we look at this text called The Man Named Bad. Can you imagine if your parents actually call you bad? So So if you are a boy, then you'll be Pai Kia. So what kind of name to give the child, you know? I did a bit of search, because in many of the versions, it is positioned as kids' story. Yeah, the Jataka is often positioned as kids' stories. Yeah, but are your kids? No, some of you, yes. But actually, the stories are not just meant for kids. In fact, the Buddha told these accounts to his monks. Yeah, and some of them, after hearing it, attained enlightenment to different degrees. Yeah, so definitely not for kids. So I went to do a bit of search, because the version from one of the monastery is quite heavily distilled, yeah, for easy reading by kids. Yeah, so I found one source, and the source actually have the name of the place from which this story is supposed to happen. Yeah, so in a long time ago, even before the Buddha's time, yeah, there was this place in northwestern India called Takasila. Takasila. And there was this famous teacher. He had many students who were very, very intelligent, very wise, and very high class. Yeah. But among them, there was this student called Bad. Yeah. You can imagine how all the jokes will be if you're called Bad. Yeah, I've heard simpler names and ridiculed to no end. And imagine if you're called Bad. So it turns out that his fellow students, as much as they're all very smart and wise and intelligent and all, were no different from students in school today. So they all tease him. Yeah? And so he thought, when my friends, my fellow students call me, bad come, bad go. Everything bad, 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 bad do this, bad, that. It sounded horrible. So one day, he decided he wanted to change his name. Yeah. A show of hands, how many of you would want to change your names if you were called Bad? Can't raise your hand, come on. How many of you would not bother changing your name, even if you are called Bad? How many? So from today onward, we call you Bad.
No, that name is given by the family.
Given by Shifu, can or not? How many of you would, like let's say you go for 皈依, then after that you want to 皈依, then 师父请赐给徒弟一个名字，一个法名。好，从今天开始，你叫做 I was going to say the 3-letter Chinese horrible word. He call you, from today onward, you'll be called idiot. Would you change it? If your teacher give you this name, idiot? But anyway, for this man, he decided to change it. Yeah, he decided to change it. So he went to his teacher and asked his teacher for permission to change his name. And his teacher said, well, go forth, go and look for a good name. Come back when you are done, and I will formally give you this name, and you can have a new name. So he left this place, Takasila, and then he went to this town, and he saw that there was a funeral, and there was a person who had just died. Yeah, so he asked the people around there, oh, what happened? Oh, this person just died. And because he's out looking for a name, he asked about the name. What is the name of this person? So they told him, his name is Alive. He is called Alive. And yeah, it sounds, and he was like, how can he be dead? He's alive. So the man told this Bad, but it's just a name. Just because he's caught alive doesn't mean he will not die. So after hearing that, he was like, okay, makes a bit of sense. And he kind of felt a bit better about his own name. but he still couldn't figure out what name to use. He surely wasn't going to call himself alive now, since alive can also die. So he went to the next town, and when he was in the next town, he saw this commotion, another commotion. And this time round, he saw this this girl being like, in a way, abused by this other person. So he asked around, and he found that this is actually a debt-ridden slave girl. Yeah, and he was like, oh dear, and what is her name? Like, what kind of name would lead to such a plight, you know? And the name was Reach. Yeah, and again he was like, how can someone who is called rich have debt and become a slave? A rich person should not owe people any money. Yeah. So then again he was told like, but that's just a name. Yeah. A person named rich can still be poor, can still run into debts. And so after thinking about it, he was like, okay, kind of makes sense. I guess not going to call myself rich then. So he went to the next town. And when he reached the next town, someone came up to him instead this time and asked for directions. Yeah, the person was lost. So then he asked him, well, it's like he's not from this town, he can't help him, right? So he asked, but by the way, what's your name? And he said, tour guide. So how can a guide be lost? Yeah, and the person who was lost was like, it doesn't matter what I'm called. Yeah, I'm lost. Yeah. And with that, he was like, oh dear. Now all these incidents must have left something in him. So he decided to go back. Yeah, he has found an answer to his quest. So he went back, went to his teacher, and then told his teacher. And his teacher was like, okay, so what name have you found? Yeah, like, so he told his teacher his adventures. Yeah, and then he told his teacher, he has come to the understanding that a name does not make a person. Yeah, that it is through your actions that you make your life good or bad. Yeah, not by your name. Today we have this idiom called a rose by any name. Surely some of you have heard before. Come on, a rose by any name. Really? Hey, really? You're not shy or kidding me, right? Huh? Really never heard it before. A rose by any name would smell just as sweet. Yeah. Oh no. Oh yeah. How come just don't say? It is going on to YouTube, no? You know how people will think of Buddhists after this? Bodhisattva. Huh? Why? How come? I'm really always very curious though. How come some of you know the answer, but just, I'm not going to answer you, I'm not going to. Anyway, yeah, this is how Buddhism will die in our hands. Yeah. Yeah. A monk can only do so much to get Buddhists to stand up, to speak up. So yeah, this is the sutta I want to share with you. I shared this many years ago in the first time in a Dharma school for children. Yeah. And I shared this because I think in many cases, while we are in school, we may get ridiculed by classmates, by friends, yeah, with very hurtful names. Yeah. Our classmates may call us names, and at that young age, we may not understand enough about ourselves. Yeah, we may not have enough self-confidence or awareness about ourselves, and so we get affected a lot by what people call us. So I wanted to share with them to help them overcome this kind of bullying. But over the years, I start to realize that as adults, we are quite affected as well. Yeah. Maybe not in the same way, yeah, not in the same way, that kind of name calling, but we are affected by labels put onto us, yeah, by labeling. How people look at us. The way we think people look at us is a form of name as well. Not literally, they may not come to us and call us directly, yeah, but the impression of us, yeah, that we think other people have, and that's the best thing. It doesn't matter whether people really think that way about us, but if we think other people think that way about us, that's enough to get us, wow, really sad or upset. So linked to this is the concept of words having no meaning. Yeah. I'll share a bit more on that in future, yeah. But that's all I have to share today about the man named Bat. Any questions or thoughts? Any questions or thoughts? Any of you bullied by your friends or your colleagues before with name calling? Yes? Uh-huh. Meow Ching. Oh, okay.
So that's why I think at the start in context that you're young, maybe you want to have a change.
Oh. And they will call you cat.
They will call meow, come, squat down, you have to solo, you have to crawl.
Oh. And what did your teacher?
No, I was like, it's like more whole class, you're the only one.
Oh. And did you inform your teacher?
Because there's one time I ever seen, I wanted to inform my teacher. Then actually, then but I think I raised up to my mom. Then my mom said that, don't make so much trouble, kind of thing.
Oh.
I keep quiet.
Oh.
Then it keep on going, then to extend that it beyond what I can take it. Because during recess time, the food that I have it, they will put me like a pet, like that kind of thing.
Oh dear.
This is how I felt. So that was when I was young. Then after that, when I couldn't take it anymore.
What do you do?
I confronted the teacher, said I was being treated that way. So this is how it arrived. Then because I chose the time is at end of the semester.
Oh.
So I go to next year.
He's a new teacher.
It's a new teacher, but then I will not face the same classmate anymore.
Oh, so you only told the teacher at the end of it?
Yeah.
And what was the purpose by saying it only at the end of it?
Because I think they are getting a bit out of hand. I mean, they enjoy doing it.
Oh, but by doing it at the end of, I mean, not to fault you, yeah. But I'm always curious. But first of all, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, thank you. I don't think it's easy to share something like that. And I have a strange feeling that many of us would have gone through different kinds of bullying as well. And the thing is, how do we learn to stand up to bullies? Yeah, I think this is something that whether it is parents towards children or for what do you call that? For even adults, yeah, at work. Should we just keep quiet until we cannot take it, then we speak up? Yeah. I've counseled and had the privilege of talking to different individuals, yeah, in different situations. I'm of the opinion that instead of just putting up with things, yeah, and then just bearing with it until we cannot take it, I think it's healthier if we learn to speak up. Yeah. But of course, there's a fine line between speaking up versus being petty. Yeah. But the problem is, why should we be made to feel petty for speaking up? I think this is a bigger problem than being petty itself. Yeah. Because in our culture, especially I think Asia Singaporean, anyone who speak up is seen and put into that kind of high spotlight, like, oh yeah, this person troublemaker. This person, why cannot bear with it? But why should people bear with bad behavior? Why should we allow that to happen? We shouldn't. Yeah, we shouldn't. So we shouldn't have to bear with bad behavior. We should instead, I think, teach our young and also teach ourselves to speak up when necessary. Yeah. Instead of only speaking up when we cannot take it. Because usually when we cannot take it and we speak up, there's a lot of emotions involved. Yeah, there's a lot of emotions involved. Better to speak up when we are not so emotionally charged, then easier and more effective for us to deal with the situation. On the other hand, we should also learn to listen when people are speaking up. And not wait until people blow up or like appear to be upset. Then we do anything and everything to placate the other party. Yeah, and I say this including friendships, including peer relationship at work, subordinate and boss relationship, and even among spouses. Yeah, I've always thought that speaking up is the right thing. But I realize that sometimes when you speak up, people don't take you seriously. So I want to highlight, when people speak up, we should take them seriously also. We shouldn't only take actions or do something only when people scream and shout. This is a very unhealthy culture. Yeah. So anytime people point out something, we should take note of it and not wait until the person like bang table. The current culture in Singapore, you go to any customer service, you must threaten to post it online, then they do something. Like, what's wrong with society nowadays, Yeah, why must people say the same thing again and again, repeat and repeat, then people take actions? Then when people, bold some text, then, oh, this person is upset. But why should emotions ever have to come into the picture? So I think there are a lot of things we can learn. If there are no other, are there anyone else who want to share or anything? Let me just drink some water, let you all think about it. Yes.
In some teaching, we are taught that we should open up to accepting, different responses or different opinions.
In some teachings, you are saying that in some teachings we are taught to accept different opinions. Which
when some things don't actually goes your way, we just have to be open up to, other people's opinion. So, does it come into what you are talking about?
What teaching is it?
As in, when things happen, right, we should accept to it is what it is.
Expectation at all, and then that's basically like, let's just do whatever we want to do. Yeah, but that shouldn't be. That's not cultivation. Yeah. If the Buddha had done that, we will not have Buddha today. We will not have Buddhism today. We will have Sakyamuni Buddha bumming around. Yeah. But that's if you go according to the sutta. If you go according to the modern flavor of Buddhism, then it feels very nice and rosy and accept me and all my flaws. Yeah. Then how to have the motivation to change and strive towards enlightenment? How many of you like people to accept you as they are? Nobody had to raise their hand now. I'm sure a number of you find that idea very attractive. Yeah. Of course, oftentimes it's a matter of how you apply that statement. Are you applying it blatantly, across the board, or are you applying it to some specific areas? Hello. Yes. Yes. Oh, you better hurry because I'm about to wrap up. Okay. The volunteer teachers from Coming Sun. Yeah. So anyway, acceptance, accepting, having that nice feeling that people accept you as they are, as you are. I think there are certain things that we like people to accept. Like for example, I'm not an Amor. But for me, at my age, if a person cannot accept that I'm Amor, is upset with me because I'm not an Amor, or for that matter, a Malay or Indian, I'm like, okay, sure, I'll still be friendly with you, but if you don't like me as a result, I can't help you. That's a problem, not mine. Yeah. If we live our life hoping, wishing, wanting others to accept us, I think that is a bigger problem than whether people accept you or not. Because then you are hinging a part of your happiness. And I say a part because for some people it's actually their whole happiness. Even if it's a part of your happiness, if you hinge it on whether people accept you or not, then there's a very high chance you're not going to be happy. Yeah, because I'm sure you will find someone who cannot accept certain parts of you. Then what are you going to do? So instead of trying too hard to get people to accept you, or trying too hard to change yourself so that people can accept you. On one hand is accept me as I am. On the other hand is I will change so that you can accept me. But rather you have to ask yourself honestly, a lot of honest introspection. First question is not who or what you are first, but what you want to become, or what is your end goal. Some people ask me, is the practice right or wrong or whatever? And I'm like, well, it depends on what you want to do at the end of the day. If you want to be enlightened, then there are certain things you definitely have to avoid. You cannot have your cake and eat it. If you want to develop concentration, then you've got to stop, listening to music. There's no two ways around it. It's like parents telling the kid, if you want to get good grades, you better study. Is there anyone who can get good grades without studying? Maybe, but most of us are not. She looked very sad now. Shifu is not going to accept me as I am. Yes, Annette.
Yes, Shifu, you know about bullying can commit suicide, not if bullying.
Bullying can commit suicide or not?
Yes.
Are you asking whether bullying can lead to suicide,
Yes.
or
can
are
lead-
you asking whether if a person is being bullied, then can you commit suicide? Which one are you asking, or both?
If there's someone who got bullied, and sometimes they will feel they're not good also, then they commit suicide later in their life when
Right. So recently I talked to some friends and discussed about a very touchy concept or topic, and it's about self-harm. Yeah, self-harm and suicide. This is a huge topic, and we are a bit running late. So I will just quickly touch on it. First things first. Suicide in any form is going to harm yourself. Yeah. When we say break the precept, it's about harming yourself in this case. Yeah. And unfortunately, when we commit suicide, it actually harms others also. Not just whoever you may land on, but your family and friends. You will definitely, you will probably, I don't have to say definitely, but you will probably not hurt those who were bullying you in the first place. Some of them may be stricken with remorse, but it doesn't fix the harm that they did. Yeah? It may maybe make them remorseful and not harm others, but maybe it may trigger them to go and commit suicide also. Oh, I'm so remorseful, I commit suicide also. So then you start an escalate, a whole domino effect of people committing suicide. Yeah. So first and foremost, simply, suicide is about harming ourselves and others. Yeah. Doesn't solve the problem. We should, while there are some people who do self-harm and commit suicide, thinking that is an option towards their problem, I think there must be some voice of reason to highlight that while some people think in that way, it is not a viable solution nonetheless. Because I see many articles saying that, a lot of young teenage girls have resorted to self-harm as a way to cope with their pain. And when it's read that way, it's almost as though self-harm is a solution to their pain. That, yeah, somebody tried, and you can imagine impressionable young kids reading that and, maybe I should try that, Think about it. We want to ban violent games, but we actually make such statements. If we think that kids playing violent games will become violent, why are we allowing such concepts to float around so openly? Yeah. Why are we not having that voice of the other angle, highlighting that doing that doesn't solve anything, But this is a huge topic.